Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Heart of CX. I'm Joanna Palmer, and as always, hi Max Ball, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How's it going with you, Joanna?
Going really well, going really well. How's the weather?
The weather here, it is hopeful. There's cloud. It got drizzly. We're supposed to get a little rain in a couple of days, and boy, do we need it. We had one wonderful rainstorm, and then after that, nothing, and back to, the miseries of nice, sunny, warm days and at the end of the year. How about you? How is it out there?
So unseasonably warm. We're in December and it's 75 degrees today. So
Wow.
I think we're hitting a record today with
Yeah, that's
this high.
wow. I mean, that we can get that in normal times in California, but in Missouri, that's not anything. Well, okay. So weather in different places and where you are, we were talking about kind of future of work and work from home, and as we get to as 2021 fades into 2022, what's all that going to look like? So,
Yeah.
you want to kick us off with some thoughts around all of that?
Sure. So I was reading some research on this lately, and it's really interesting some of the things that we're finding coming out of 2021. A recent survey from a Human Resources magazine was recently completed with customer service agents, and some interesting findings that came out of that were hybrid agents, those that worked both remote and in office, were more stressed out than their counterparts, which I found very interesting as we talk about hybrid being here to stay.
Do
What
you,
are your thoughts there?
that is my thought is that is so thoroughly counterintuitive. I'm not sure how to get my head around it. I would it Did they talk to the why at all?
They they did, and really the why is that we don't have good operating processes around the
Hmm.
hybrid model yet. So, just thinking about not having those good cadences of what does it look like in office part of the time, at home part of the time. What sort of flexibility do you have between the both? Do you have to go to the office certain set of days every week, or is there flexibility there? And why? Asking the whys associated with these policies that are just now being created. Um, and then the cohesive culture, having a cohesive culture between
Yeah.
the hybrid.
But yeah, and I guess that's the thing that surprises me is I feel like if you're in the office a couple days a week, it's easier to build a cohesive culture because you're physically there to bond, if you will.
Yeah, that's
And
a good point.
yeah, and boy, I'm going to be happier commuting 2-3 days a week than 5 days a week. But I guess as you were talking, it struck me it's kind of like having two Mondays every week. It's like you're for assuming you worked at home Monday, Friday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday you're in the office. Monday work starts, and then Tuesday, I got to go back to the office. So I could see that kind
Yeah,
of being a drain. But
yeah,
wow, I find that really surprising. That's
I
interesting.
did too. I did too. And I think it also depends on, do you have the same group working from home on certain days and the same group working in the office on some of the days? Do you try to mix it up so everybody connects with everybody somehow throughout the week?
Yeah.
As we've talked about before, there's that power in the water cooler bump ins or
Right. Right.
sticking your head into an office. So if you've got the fixed staff working fixed schedules, do you artificially prevent some of that from happening?
Yeah, that's true. And you're only going to go. If the positive of going into the office is seeing your coworkers, and you're only ever going to see a third of them, I guess yeah, I could see where that's less of a plus than it is if it's, everybody's there and you've got more people to run into and all that kind of stuff. And if you do it too much as shifty things, then you're only going to see people once in a blue moon anyway. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I get
So,
that.
question for you, Max. When did you start working from home, even part time?
Oh, wow. Way back. 2002
And was
was
it
first.
full time or part time in 2000?
It was a mix. I was contracting,
Mhm.
so it would be at home until the contract brought me to the office. So it was kind of a weird mix. I get, I guess at that point I wasn't ever really going to the office because it wasn't my company, but I was, functioning as an employee there. Then I spent a lot of time being a sales engineer. And the thing for me in that role, I was working from home and then, but I was traveling like a quarter of the time or so. So I was out getting a lot of social interactions and seeing people and stuff. So it wasn't isolating. There was too much time spent on the road and dealing with people to feel isolated.
So for me, I started working ad hoc from home. I think, gosh, I want to say back in 97, 98, probably 98, 99. Just thinking about anytime I needed heads down work. I am a person that gets easily distracted. And so cubicle land in the office just is full of distractions. So if it was anything that needed my full attention, certainly I would take some time and work from home on it rather than in the office. But it was so ad hoc, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. I heard some really interesting. It was an NPR interview with a guy who ran a college university research project around working from home and started. I forget if it was 2018 or 2019, but very shortly before the pandemic hit. And the first thing, he had some really fascinating and unexpected conclusions. One was, guess which function performed very well at home, work from home?
Well, I'm going to guess based on what the topic of this podcast is about, Max, that maybe, just maybe, it could be contact center.
All right, fine. So I led you a little too far, but yes, contact center agents, productivity was even, I think it was up a little bit compared to, and this was again pre-pandemic.
So, and do you think so with contact center? Every second of their day is accounted for. There is so much transparency there that as an employee, I know I'm going to be monitored no matter where I work. Whereas a typical office worker doesn't really get monitored as extensively. Is that
I,
some of it, or did he give you
I
any
believe,
insight?
yes, I believe very much that for an agent, no matter where you are, everything you say is recorded, everything you do is logged. You're really, and oh, by the way, when you're home, typically it's a better environment than a very small cube in a very noisy area. And so I think there's a lot of reasons why that could be positive. There's more there's things like laundry at home to distract you, but there's also just so much buzz around you to distract you in the office that it's tough. The
Yeah.
other thing that was really interesting about this was when you move beyond the contact center and knowledge workers working from home were less than half as productive as knowledge workers working in the office. Way, way down. And
Interesting.
yeah, and so he's done a lot of follow-up studies. Obviously, what a perfect study to have just done when COVID hit.
Uh-huh.
Um, and what he found was that there was a big change. Productivity went way, way, way up. And he really found a couple of things driving that. Some was just focus and the fact that you had to do it, but the other big thing was technology and the collaboration tools so you can get a hold of somebody and get your question answered, and the video, and just all the basic tools that we talk about and promote all the time, that it's not like those tools weren't there, but
Right.
people weren't using them, people weren't consistent with them. And he said I forget the exact percentage, but it went from being half as productive to, I think it became like 3/4 or more. It was 80% to 75% as productive. And at that point, if you're a CFO and you balance the real estate costs with the productivity hit, it starts to make sense to just let people work from home, at least hybrid or something like that. It was really fascinating that there'd been that much of a shift.
It does. And I think one of the things that we need to watch when we do this hybrid model, so with using your tools, with using your UC tools to reach out to individuals, the benefit of everybody working in the same mode is that everybody's in front of their screen for the most part. They're not up and walking around and in conference rooms and away from their computer. Everybody's always on. And we hear about this being a double-edged sword in terms of I don't even have
Fair
time
enough.
to take a lunch. So if we're looking at a hybrid model where some of those team members are in the office, are they going to start doing more in-person collaborations, more meetings where they're not available to the hybrid workers? And are we going to see a movement the other way too,
Yeah, interesting. That's interesting. I think the other piece I learned literally today, there was an article, I who still read a physical newspaper, there was an article in the paper today about, my neighbor Apple. They, in the past couple months, they've signed 2 huge leases around here for more office space. Meta, which is Facebook, also has signed 2 huge leases. Google just did a massive thing. So companies are not, companies in the Bay, there are 2 elements to this. One is just, what does that say about work from home, work in the office? The companies are still planning people are coming back. Even if it's part-time, they're still spending a whole lot on facilities and space for them. The other that was more the tone of this article, was this is the Bay Area, which is the most expensive real estate, going. And they still want to stay here. They still want it to be here. So I'm still, this is just another sign to me that by 2023, the whole hybrid thing is going to be, there'll still be some. The pendulum is swung in a way that it's never going to swing all the way. It's never going to swing all the way back, but I do think it's going to swing back pretty big.
Right. And I think there's that flexibility in work models as well, so that depending on what's going on with the pandemic and what we're seeing, there's that flexibility in going home when needed, working from home when needed, working in the office as that standard for sure. I do find it interesting, number one, that you subscribe to a physical newspaper, Matt. I was trying to wrap my head around that a little bit while you were talking. And then number 2, that there is that desire to stay in the Bay Area, because we did see a number of companies release statements that, hey, we're leaving the Bay Area. A lot of times I think it was Austin, Texas was the one that I saw.
And Austin, the price of real estate in Austin has gone up manifold. And this article actually spoke to that. And one of the points they made was Tesla, which was the most visible, and was a Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and another one. Tesla specifically, and some of these others, they moved some headquarters staff to Austin, but they're still hiring in the Bay Area. So it's not like, the Tesla Palo Alto office is growing. It's not shrinking. So the fact that they're not closing stuff down, they moved a cadre of people over there, and then the rest are staying put and growing there. So, just I guess Musk and his most tight core of people are in Austin now, but the rest of the folks are still in California.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, this was a really good conversation. I think that there's still so much up in the air and so much for us to learn about over the course of the next 6 months, year, 2 years, on what the future of work really looks like. It certainly sounds like nobody has the answers at this point.
No, you're so right. This is something that's just a whole lot of questions, and who knows when the answers are going to start making sense. We'll see where it goes.
Until that time, Max, keep us apprised of what you see in that physical paper that gets delivered.
I will do that.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Until next time.
All righty. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks, Joanna. Talk to you.